So good morning, listeners, and welcome to our talks on health and health-related issues. I am hoping to open the communication about illnesses, chronic illnesses, invisible illnesses, so that people can feel heard, but also that people who might be listening might find it quite inspiring, or that they're left with a lot more hope than before our discussion. So my name is Sherry Forsyth, and I'm a peak performance coach with a particular interest in health-related issues, which seem to be on the increase. And so I welcome Gill Koller. Thank you so much for your time and being with us today. Gill is the Chemo Conqueror. She has just completed her chemotherapy and is about to start radiation. So she's in the middle of cancer treatment. And so I'm going to ask Gill just to share with you as listeners what her journey's been like. And so the first question is, how did you first know that things were not right, that maybe there was something wrong in your body?
Sherry, well, thank you for having me, and excuse the fact that I'm chewing gum, but the one side effect is my saliva. My saliva's dried up, and from time to time I have a very dry mouth. So I'm not nervous, I've got a dry mouth. I think, it was quite an interesting way where I discovered this. And I just feel that I was totally and utterly protected. I was down in Cape Town with a friend of mine, and I was lying in her bed reading a book, and literally my hand fell on my breast. And I felt this something, and I thought, no, can't be. And I felt it again, and eventually I said to this friend of mine, I need you to come and feel this. And she said, I'm not touching your boob. So I actually said, you've got to, this time you've got to close the curtains, you've got to check my boob. Anyway, there was a little something, and I'm not one to panic. I just thought, well, when I was flying home, Joe actually said to me, just have it checked. And I thought, I just need to be sensible. They talk about this lumps and breasts, and it was Cancer Week at that particular time.
Oh, wow.
And I came back, and it was like a niggle in my brain. It's like your soul's telling you need to do something about it. Anyway, I phoned a friend and I said, listen, a mammogram, do you need a referral? That's how ignorant I was. And she said, no, you just go up to Hilton and go and have it done. And I said, well, like where and what? And she said, why, is there a problem? So I said, no, there's a bit of a lump. I'm not worried about it. It's just, I think I need to be sensible. That's all I said.
Just checking.
Anyway, off I popped up there, not thinking for a moment. And I did say to my friend Joe, listen, I'm going to go. And she said, as soon as you come out, you're going to talk to me. Anyway, prior to this, when we were in Cape Town, we were talking about cancer because one of her friends' partners had just died the night before. And it was quite an interesting conversation because we were both saying, chemotherapy, absolutely not. I said, I'll take my money and I'll travel the world. I said, because travel is my passion. And she said, I agree. And her and I
So in other words, what you were saying was, should you be diagnosed with cancer, chemo would not be an option.
Not an option.
Because
I'm a very natural person. I previously had a stroke some 14 years ago, and it took the medical profession a long time to establish what was going on until I had the second one, and that was a major. So obviously I'd lost confidence in them. Secondly, I've always been an alternate. I use alternates. I do Reiki myself, and I've always sort of felt the body, mind, and soul. It's all about healing yourself, and I've always gone the natural route, naturopaths and all that kind of thing. And interesting, prior to September, I'd been in Nice and I'd gone and seen a naturopath because I was a bit worried about my energy and all sorts of things. So obviously something was niggling way back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for me, cancer, I don't even want to mention the word cancer because to me it was a negative connotation, and chemo, absolutely not. So when I phoned Joe and I said to Joe, listen, buddy, it looks like there's a bit of a concern. And I obviously burst into tears because it was the fear of the unknown.
Sure.
Absolute fear of the unknown. And her immediate response was, hey, this chemo thing, we're rethinking that. Honestly, but we're rethinking that. So, it was a matter of deciding how, where, and what. They even asked me, do you have a doctor? And I said, no, I don't have a doctor. The only thing I do have is a neurologist because of the after effects of the stroke. And I suffer with a form of pétiment. I think that's the best way of putting it.
As a result of the stroke?
As a result of the stroke. So the stroke was my first chronic illness. Through that, I've lost what you call my vestibular system, so that's your balance. So I'm like a little bit of a drunkard all the time.
Oh, your excuses.
And obviously my hearing. So they were saying, you've got to have a doctor. I said, I don't. I have no cooking clue who to even refer. And then I remember way back I saw this particular doctor and I said, well, I think he's retired. And when I said to them who it was, no, he's still practicing. I said, well, send the results to him, but you better tell him who I am because I haven't been there for so long. Anyway, that was that. Off I went and they said, there'll probably be about 3 days. So they did the autopsy in the room as I was sitting there because he picked up something. And it was like, is it okay? What do you mean to say? No, you can't. Yeah. Of course you have to do something about it. Anyway, so off I go. I shoot back to work and I immediately go and see my boss and I say to her, gosh, there's a 50-50 chance here. And she said, just relax. But it's that fear of the unknown. And it's that sort of, if it is cancer, like what, where, and how. And
do you think you had a deeper kind of knowing that maybe this was it?
Absolutely. Okay. My soul knew. Okay. And I think it was my head trying to connect with my soul. And it was kind of like there's not a single bit of cancer in my family. So no genetic predisposition? Nothing. So I think, yes, my soul did know. Then when the doctor's rooms did phone me and I went to him, it was actually quite interesting because he eventually remembered who I was and he was sitting shifting papers. And I thought, what's with you? I'd taken a friend with just in case, and it was actually friends they'd suggested just in case it was, because they said you're going to shut down. Anyway, as I say, Sherry, my soul did know. So eventually I said to a friend of mine, sit in the waiting room, and if I need you, I'll come call you. Because also I'm a type of person, I'm very independent, I can face things, Anyway, so he then said to me, I've got good and bad news. And I said, stop right there. I need to go call my bud. Anyway, so she came through, and again, he didn't quite know how to tell me. And I felt sort of compassion for him. So it's okay, so I felt like I
was helping him.
In
a difficult time.
Yes.
Wow.
Anyway, and he said, I've got you good and bad news. And he eventually came out with it, and he said, listen, they have picked up cancer in the boob. The positive is it's encapsulated. The negative is it's a very aggressive type. And I could see him so I said to him, right, okay, we've got a situation here. How do we move forward? And he then said, he wanted to refer me to a surgeon, which he did. And then he said, how must I know who? I mean, I don't even know any of those doctors. And a friend popped and gave her, but we decided on a surgeon and so on and so forth. And with him saying that it's encapsulated, I thought, well, they're going to get this little nasty little rascal out of there, and thereafter, I'll be absolutely fine. Anyway, it was quick and and I did have a lumpectomy. I was very, very fortunate. They did give me an option of taking off the full breast, a full mastectomy. And my immediate thought was, you know what? If I have my breast taken out, I'm coming from a place of fear.
Yes.
He's advising lumpectomy. So I am not going to buy into this fear or onto.
Wow.
That was my immediate reaction to the whole thing. And I said to him, okay, well, let's just go ahead and let's get this little creature out of my sweet, what I thought were gorgeous little boobs. So that's what we did. And off I went into hospital. And that's how it all started. Was it a shock? Absolutely. The doctor phoned me about 2 days later and he said, Jill, how are you doing? And I said, you know what? I think I might be in denial, but no, I'm okay. I'm okay. He said to me, your reaction was so low. Have you got the fact that this is very serious? We're talking about something very serious. And whilst I got that in my soul, I think because of his reaction, suddenly I went, oh my gosh, what are we dealing with? And I put on the phone to him after saying to him, I think this is my way as well. I get it. I think he did think that I was going to rush off and go and chew a whole lot of herbs again and not take this seriously.
So when you said you were too low, did he suspect that you hadn't got the message because you were very calm in the way you reacted?
I think he said my reaction was very low. So I think it was from the point of view, what he was saying is, I didn't burst into tears. I didn't go hysterical. I was matter of fact saying, we've got a problem. Right, we've got to face it.
Okay. So very proactive, not fearful. And maybe he's used to a very fear-driven response.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that, and when he said that, for a moment I caught myself. I shot out of my office. Because that's me. When I'm in a sort of a panic situation, I just need to be by myself, to pull myself towards myself. I'm not one to create a big drama. I don't like drama. If I want to be in the center of the attention, I'll put myself in it, but I don't generally. And suddenly I ran past one of my colleagues and she said, are you okay? And I burst into tears and I said, I think I'm dying. That was my first thing, of which I'd never thought that before. And her comment was, we all start dying the day we start living. And I went, that's actually true. No, I'm over that. I'm not dying anymore.
I'm okay.
I'm okay. And yes, I did have a little bit of a sob, but I think that comment was a catalyst to make me like a reality check, but it was for a moment. I'm very good at chipping my emotions, chipping my brain to not allow myself to go negativity, because where's it going to get you in your bed? So yes, that was how it all came about.
And so, Gilly, what, in your opinion, what do you think actually caused it for you?
You know, I've done a lot, research. I've watched a lot of YouTube clips. I'm very into as I said, the body, mind, and soul. I do believe that physical manifestations of illness as a result of emotional stuff. And I've sort of proved that. The only common thing I can find so far is, number one, trauma. If you have had an awful shock. And number two, and I heard a Dr. Gabor Mateo speak. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's
fantastic, yes.
And he was talking about when the body says no and we don't say no. And I think that's basically, it's pushing yourself to the nth degree. it's whilst you're hearing your body, and someone like me who's got a very strong mind, you're saying, okay, not quite now. I need rest.
I know that, but I can't do it now.
No.
Okay, so I think that's a big takeaway that so many people who I've interviewed so far have said, and it's maybe something really important for our listeners to get, is when you are tired and your soul, mind, body is saying to you, you need time off. You need to take the time off.
Absolutely.
But because of the way we live and our busyness and our jobs and our children and our husbands or whatever, we don't take the time. But our soul knows we need it.
Absolutely.
And so we override it.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And I think some days I ask myself if that's ego-driven, because, can we hand over, which in actual fact, I think, yes, that's the one lesson I'm learning right now, is that you've got to slow down. But it's not as easy.
No, it's very difficult. And that's why I think so many people battle with it until, my feeling is that what happens is our body gives us a few, like your strokes, hints, low energy, maybe flus, whatever, illnesses. And we don't listen.
We don't listen.
And then it says, now, my girlie, I'm going to shut you down.
Absolutely.
And I, with a really serious illness of whatever nature it is.
Yes.
And that is my belief. I don't know whether it's been scientifically proven, but that is what I think is what happens to the body.
Yeah. And I'll confirm that a little bit later as to where I got to the place again. I believe all these are gifts, because I think we push too hard, and I think if we won't listen to our souls and our bodies, then God, the universe, is going to help us along with it.
It does. It makes the decision for us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so the main challenges of your illness and treatment, what main challenges have you faced?
Okay, so me being that very natural, whatever, I then was vacillating with this whole thing of how am I going to choose this? Because immediately the doctor said to me, it's probably going to be a surgery. You'll go off to the oncologist, and then he'll make the call of what the next treatment is. And I can just remember him saying clearly to me is, when you choose a path, stick to it. And so it was this whole thing of, well, if it comes that I have to do chemo, how am I going to choose this? And interestingly enough, one of my friends actually said to me, who's very an alternate and is not adverse to either, she just, her wisdom to me was, just ask your soul. Wow. I haven't listened to my soul, but now I'm going to have to listen to it. And I think your intuition and that does tell you. And when I went to the oncologist, it was so interesting. And he said to me, right, I think we need to go the chemo route. My soul said, absolutely. Because I think at that stage, I am quite a pragmatic person as well, and I face all my challenges head on. I just thought, you know what, I've got to trust the professional, which is something that
very difficult,
which was hard because it is your life. So it was to make that call of chemo. Then, you hear all the most horrific things about it. And again, I'm just so grateful. I kept saying to myself, am I going to buy into fear, or am I going to buy into getting this behind me? It's just a little glimpse in my radar. I need to face it. I need to get through it. And yeah. So what has been the greatest challenge? Well, as I said to the oncologist after my first treatment, my biggest fear was going under an anesthetic, because that's where my first stroke happened. I'd overcome that. I came out, I was alive, and I was quite fine. My second challenge was, now how are we going to marry this chemotherapy with the stroke aspect? Because the stroke is all to do with the brain. And I was fearful of that. again, having to trust the process, and I chatted to the oncologist, and he said, he was great. He just calmed me down, and he said, we take one step at a time, and so on and so forth. I had my first treatment, and where did it hit me? Exactly where the stroke was.
Oh, wow.
And it was I am deaf in my right ear. That day, I thought I was going to hear again. I've never gone through pain like that in my whole life. My daughter
was the pain in the ear or actually in the whole area?
In the
brain?
ear, exactly where my soft spot would be, going into the brain. I've never had a headache or a migraine like that in my life, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Fortunately, while my daughter was here, she then shot down to the neurologist and had a good chat to her. She gave me, if it wasn't for medication that she had given me previously that I kept just for when I had these intense headaches, because that is one of the side effects as well, I would have never got through that first treatment. Never, ever. So I saw colours after a couple of days, and he said, how are you doing? And I said to him, I want to tell you, honestly, I said to him, if this had been yesterday, I want to tell you, there's not a hope in hell I would have done a second treatment. And I actually would have said quite bad words. I said, because that's how
sore it was.
Then I turned to him and I said to him, have you ever walked the Otter Trail? And his words were, no, but I've heard about it. And I said, well, I've done the Camino and I've done the Otter Trail. Both are grueling, especially the Otter Trail. And I said, I would say this is about as bad.
Wow.
Okay. But because it had subsided, it's interesting how the human nature is it's, well, I've got through that. It's okay now. I've got to carry on. So it's
got to finish it.
I've got to finish.
So that mentality, which would have been really good for you for the Otter Trail, for the Camino, I've got to get to the end of it.
Yes.
Also contributed to you saying, I've got to get to the end of the chemo.
Yes.
Okay. And as we're sitting here right now, I have a friend who's doing the Camino. She's got Parkinson's, and she has obviously lots of body aches and pains, but she's doing the Camino to enhance the knowledge of Parkinson's out there. Because there's so Rosie, I know you'll be watching this. Just want to say hello and
Bon
keep
Camino,
going.
Bon Camino, as everybody says. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that it was that resilience to say, I'm not going to give up.
Yes, and tenacity. And also, I think the big thing was to chunk it and say to yourself that it's little bites. And I mean, that's exactly what you do in the Camino.
Just for today.
Just for today. And I walked Portugal to Spain and on my own, wanted to do it because I think it's all about self-growth. And it was every single day. So you meet the challenge for that day, believing tomorrow's a new day and it's new opportunities.
And you'll cross that when you get there.
Yes.
You're not going to think of the long term.
No.
You're thinking just of today and the challenges it might hold, but also, did you find that you looked for the gifts even when you were sick, or did the gifts only really come afterwards?
No, it's my personality type. I immediately click into what am I going to get out of this? There's a nugget in everything. So what, where, what, how come, what for? And my immediate thought was, number one, I'd found it at stage 1, so it hadn't even gone into my lymph glands. The other thing, and I think for me, and I've sat often and thought about this, everybody has a measure stick in life. And your coping is as great as what you feel that you can get to. So in other words, if you've never experienced any trauma or that, so it's sort of fearful because you're out of your comfort zone. But in my situation, I've got I had a dad who was bipolar, and my fear was always to be bipolar. So when I had the stroke, and immediately when I had was diagnosed with this cancer, it was, thank you, Lord, at least it's not bipolar.
Oh, wow.
So it's interesting
Okay.
how you immediately click in and say, for me, mental illness is a far more traumatic thing than a physical illness. And so immediately it was that place of gratitude.
Wow.
And
Okay.
gratitude that it was stage 1. Gratitude. Yeah.
So I'm just checking that I'm hearing what you're saying. If you have, it depends where you are in your life, what you've experienced and what traumas you've had, that will put your illness into perspective.
Absolutely.
So that for you it was, oh, thank goodness it's not bipolar. This is okay. I can cope with it. Whereas if you hadn't experienced a father suffering from it, you might, and you had a background where there were no traumas, no challenges, maybe for you this would have been huge. But it's because you're seeing it in perspective of your whole life, and that I have overcome so much already.
Yes.
I can do this.
That's it.
Is it? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But not, you don't live in that space all the time.
No.
You do have those, oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, no, I can do this. And I think the big thing for me, Sherry, and I saw myself click into it, those skills that I'd learned when I was like previously with my stroke, I clicked into that immediately. And it was about surrounding yourself with positive people. It's about filling your brain. I immediately go looking for books, positive books. I go into YouTube. I look for positivity of who's overcome it. And I think
and how did they do that?
And how did they do that?
Okay.
Because my whole thing is, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And I think for the listeners, I think that's the biggest thing that I would advise anybody is don't buy into that fear. Just go and look for those people who have overcome. Because I think your biggest thing for me, Sherry, is forgetting the illness. It's the mind. And I said it, and it's dealing with the mind and the fear and the keeping yourself positive. And
because the whole mind, body, spirit, if the mind is very powerful and directly affects the body.
Yes.
So if you've got a negative slant in the mind, it will affect your healing. And I also firmly believe that. So Gilly, were there certain, can you think of a certain book or YouTube videos or person that particularly stood out above the others in helping you?
Okay, my person that and listen, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not a religious person, but I've got a very deep spirituality and a relationship, which a lot of people don't understand because I also do Reiki, but I was taught Reiki by a Catholic nun, interestingly enough.
Wow.
And one book I'd read years ago, and I've done one or two of her courses, is Louise Hay. I don't know if you've heard of Louise Hay.
Yeah.
And hers is all about that you can heal yourself. She healed herself through cancer. I do believe that some are capable, so and others aren't, and if you're not, it's not that you're lesser than or whatever. I think a lot is to do with the personality, and I just think we're all on a different journey. So yes, it stood out for me.
Her work is amazing.
And then the other thing for me is the Bible, from the point of view, and again, I don't know much of my Bible, but I've got clips, and I just remembered the power of the spoken word. So at no stage did I call, and I whisper this every time, the first lot of chemo is called the red devil. I refused to use that term. I called it the purple angel because I did a visualization before each chemo, and I did meditation of a YouTube that I'd come across where I married the whole mind story, and I saw my chemo as golden, a flow of golden light coming into my body, and it was going to heal me. Yeah. So it was those kind of things, healing light. Yeah. Okay. So it was that meditation, and I can't tell you, I can't even remember who it was by, but it was Maring and Louise Hay. Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah, Louise Hay is remarkable, sadly no longer with us, but her her work in the whole field of healing was really so profound because it was groundbreaking. She was being able to put out there what a lot of people were starting to think. I wish that many more of our allopathic doctors would be able to dig into the huge healing power of exactly what you're talking about. But they think we just all woo-hoo, and we don't know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Like you're going to go and munch herbs and get better.
Yes, absolutely.
But not realizing that it is scientifically based.
Well, this doctor that
Gabor Mate.
Yes. I mean, he's a medical doctor and he's talking the stuff now. And I do believe there's an awakening that takes place. And I mean, Louise's basic philosophy is to love yourself. And what is this guy saying? You don't love yourself enough to say no when your body is actually saying no. So to me, it makes absolute sense.
Perfect sense.
Yes.
And there are more and more medical doctors that are going along that route.
Absolutely.
Dr. Tom O'Brien, there are a few that are very involved in the mind, body, soul story. But anyway, so for those people who are out there, find them, find the doctors that are including mind, body, soul, so that there's complete healing. It's not that you just go in and zap that particular tumor and then the rest of your body's going to be fine. Your whole body needs to be involved in the process. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I think for me, Sherry, is if this cancer had manifested, I certainly want, and I haven't quite got the answer, but I'm getting there, I want to make sure or try my part in it for it to not manifest it somewhere else again. Not for a moment do I think it will. I don't. And not at all. But I think it's about taking responsibility. That's all it is, about taking responsibility.
For your own health and your well-being.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what has this illness taught you? And I know you're going to say, well, how much time have you got?
Yeah. No, I think the one thing that stood out for me is self-love. You've got to love yourself. Love yourself enough to, and again, during chemo, I have worked every day. I've taken an hour off to go and sleep because you need lots of sleep. And I felt quite weak. There were days that I felt physically weak. But
so you've worked throughout the whole process?
Absolutely. I've worked throughout.
That's amazing.
The whole process. But again, it's all about my mind. And I do believe if you keep your mind busy and you don't, not that I'm a person that goes into a wallowing, but I think we're all human at the end of the day. Have I had my cries? I absolutely have had my cries. But yes, I think it's self-love, still learning, haven't quite got there. And I think, again, it's for me gratitude, because there is so much to be grateful for. And to continually, it's like a taking stock process. And saying to yourself, well, okay, we're now at this crossroads. So what nugget am I going to take out of it?
What am I going to learn?
What am I going to learn? And yes, and I think, as I said a little bit earlier, I worked through the whole thing. They were fantastic. They said, whenever you want to take time off, take time off. But for me, it was keeping myself and my mind busy. And I worked at a different pace. And I also think, because I'm in a school environment, number one, I wanted to show my children and my friends that this cancer is not a death sentence. It's something.
It's an illness.
It's a straight illness. And it's the connotation you give to it. I'm also exposed to a lot of girls because I'm in a girls' school. And in a small way, from a humble point of view, I think cancer's gonna touch many lives. So if in a small way it was, they can remember Mrs. Koller, who she carried on working. She's always happy. and a joking, and that's my coping mechanism. It's not always how I feel. That they could take from that when they meet with this bit of crisis, and that I think is also the reason why I've gone what I call naked. I never put on scarves and except when my head's cold, or wigs or that, because to me it's a matter of if you put on, and it's my perception, if you put on a scarf and you try and hide it, you look like a chemo patient.
Yes.
And I don't want to look like a chemo patient. And when I said that to a friend of mine, she said, but you are. I said, well, okay. So yes, I think it's about facing your challenge. As my mum taught us when we were young, stare your demons in the eyes. Yes, and to carry on doing that and continually surround yourself with positive people who are not going to break you down. And when they do come with a negative, because there are always negative people out there, and I feel so sad for them, is just stop them right there.
Don't allow it in.
Don't allow it.
So for that, just a little aside about gratitude, for those listeners who are maybe a bit more scientifically geared, when we practice, and it's a practice of gratitude, neurobiologically and neurochemically, there are changes that happen in your body purely because you are in a state of gratitude. And so there's lots of research that has been done that proves that it's not just a woohoo thought that you're having.
No.
Like positivity, there are physiological changes that happen and chemical changes that happen in the body that enhance wellness.
Absolutely.
So one of the women that did groundbreaking work on that is Dr. Candace Pert, and she wrote a book called Molecules of Emotion, if you are interested in that kind of thing. But it shows how our thoughts directly, physically affect our bodies. Absolutely. And that's exactly what you've been saying. Absolutely. Is so there's a trauma, what am I going to cope with today, and how am I going to be to make sure that I'm giving my body the best chance of healing?
Absolutely. So for two things for me, it's the power of the spoken word, and it's your mind. If you're going to buy into fear, and if you're going to succumb to it, and that's why, Sherry, I actually said to you when you said, can I put the cancer word attached to it? I don't have cancer. It's been removed. I'm conquering chemo. And it was something that I thought, scary, but it is doable.
Absolutely, particularly if you chunk it down into bite-sized bits. So yes, when we were doing the advert for the session today, I said, Gilly, how do you want to be introduced? And she said, no, the Chemo Conqueror. And that actually says so much about your very positive, proactive approach, and very practical, actually, approach to, okay, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it, and what is going to be the best for me?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So for the listeners who are out there, if you have any particular questions for Gilly to answer, please feel free to make a comment on this Facebook page, and I'll make sure she gets the questions. Or if you're wanting to maybe share something of your own journey, what you found really beneficial, feel free to either make a comment on the Facebook on Facebook below the screen now, or you can send an email to sherryforsyth@gmail.com and I will forward it through. Or you can go onto my website at www.sherryforsythcoaching.com. And let us carry on this communication. Let's start and continue the conversation around things that most people don't speak about. Because in speaking about it, it makes it less fearful.
Less frightening.
Because you see, okay, well, she can do it, I can do it. This is what she said, and this is what helped her. I might do it a little bit differently, but I might try that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in conclusion, Gilly, is there anything particular that you want to say to the listeners out there, or just that you want to say?
I think for me, and it can be scary, but that's okay, is allow yourself to be vulnerable. Be truthful to yourself. Yes, and it's okay. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be in shock. All of that. And I think you've got to allow yourself to go there, but not stay there. And I think the big thing is yes, there are days that you are going to feel vulnerable or overwhelmed, and that's okay. That's okay. But don't stay there. Pick yourself up.
So in other words, be very authentic, positively and
Absolutely.
negatively. You're not trying to block any emotion.
No.
You're trying to let it in, see what it's
Feel
maybe
it.
teaching you,
Yes.
feel it, and then wave it goodbye
Absolutely.
until it comes again, if it does.
And it does.
Yeah.
And it will reappear. It will, and that is okay. And I think part of any form of illness is not to hold on to the stuff. And be it whatever it is in life, whatever you've been through, is feel it, be vulnerable, talk it out, even if it is to your dog or your cat or your pillow or a best friend. Yeah, and the other thing is humble yourself and don't let the ego kick in. And when you need somebody to help you, reach out and say, today I'm fragile. I've got one of those crying days, as I used to tell the girls at school, because they thought that I had flu. And I'd say, no, I'm having one of those crying days. But I think the big thing for me is look for the humor in it. Because laughing is also part of a good therapy.
Yeah, so thank you, Julie. I mean, there's a wealth of information that you've given our listeners today, and certainly have left them with quite concrete things to do if they are approaching, and not just a cancer, but actually any chronic illness. Surrounding yourself with positivity, with gratitude, not pretending anything. And I think, there's so much in the Western society, we have to have that stiff upper lip, which basically means you've got to pretend.
Absolutely.
Okay, so no pretense. Let the information in, but don't stay there.
Absolutely.
Let the bad feelings in, but don't stay there.
Yes.
Lots of positivity, the humility of asking for help.
Absolutely.
What have I forgotten?
And the vulnerability.
The vulnerability. Yeah.
Yes, and the humor.
And the humor.
The humor for me is, and be able to laugh at yourself. I mean, look at my gorgeous grey hair. I actually think I'm quite sexy at the moment. So
and you
laugh
are.
at yourself. But feel it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time and courage in coming to tell our listeners what your journey has been so far. And who knows, maybe in a year's time, we'll have another interview where you can say, okay, so now a year on,
Yes,
when I can see my journey in a different perspective, now what have I learned?
exactly.
So thank you. And thank you to you listeners and viewers for joining us today. We will be having our next Tuesday Facebook Live with Susie Hillier, who is going to be speaking about her health journey. So until then, I hope that you have a healthy week ahead. And once again, please feel free to make the comments, to make suggestions, to engage with us as we are trying to break apart the silence that is surrounding the whole topic of chronic illness. Thank you and goodbye.